So today's topic is strategic planning, strategic thinking around tech companies. So I rather just blurb a few ideas and welcome, this is a small enough group, welcome to just ask questions. By way of background, I've been doing business for about 30 plus years now. Scary. Ronnie is actually a longtime colleague of mine, one of my first colleagues for almost 20 years ago, and he's, journeyed with me. So it was really good to see him here. Now he's the COO of a tech company. So I'm very grateful that, I've been able to at least hopefully impress some ideas along the way with him. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a salesperson. I'm an entrepreneur. People ask me, what business do I do? I try to split it up in two very simple compartments. I'm involved in many businesses. One type of business category is what I call traditional P&L business. You have $100 worth of revenues. You got $30 worth of costs. You've got gross profits of $70. You pay a couple people salaries. You pay for rent. You pay yourself a salary. And then you hope to make a profit, and then you pay tax on that. That's a traditional P&L business. So I'm involved in a couple of those businesses, and I'll explain that. But the other part of the business is company. I would like to use Amazon as an example. Amazon wasn't profitable for 14 years. For 14 years, they're unprofitable, losing billions of dollars. And now they're a $2 trillion company. Everybody hopes to be like that as well. Elon Musk, similar with PayPal and then Tesla. So that's what we call a valuation company. So you have a traditional P&L company. The core focus is to have dividends. And the valuation company, the core focus is growth and increase the value of the company, subject to debate. And so I also have started a couple of tech companies. I've sold one, exited many years ago, 10 years ago, a tech company that Ronnie and I used to work together. I co-founded that with my brother. But since then, I've started a couple tech companies. And that's why, and we've got a few tech companies in the US. So after this, I have to start working my US hours, which is a little bit challenging. So my formal training is not entrepreneurship. I just became an entrepreneur. I don't have an MBA. I don't have a master's in finance. Actually, the master's that I have is in theology. So I'm actually trained as a pastor, which is a bit unusual. Yeah, but so on the weekends, I'm also very engaged in a local church here. So that's a little bit about myself. I've got a wife and 2 teenage kids. So I know how to start tech companies, and I know how to raise millions of dollars. I don't know how to talk to my teenage kids. So I continue to wrestle through that. What do my teenage kids do? They do TikTok. Right. So that's a little bit about myself. And I really welcome you guys to have questions. Now, strategic planning is, in my opinion, a process, right? And the question is it the right plan? And the answer is always, I don't know, but you need to have a plan. So typically, in my mind, when we do strategic planning for a tech company, there's a few components in the business plan. And if you're going to have a tech company, or you have a tech company, and you're going to put together a pitch deck, and you've raised money, there's always a few components to that pitch deck. Always, right? And the first is always, of course, I got red, fine. Mission, vision. And frankly, I'm going to use one example of a tech company that I started, that we've been very faithful to the mission. And I'll give you another tech company that I've started, and both of them we've raised a couple million. We've had to adjust this because market fit was not there. So you can be very aspirational, and you certainly should be when you're starting a tech company, and just, all right, that's the big goal. But when you run out of money, and investors are knocking on your door saying, what's up? You better have a good story, or you change the story. It's just that simple. So mission is really, as you guys, there's a lot of debate about, why we exist, the why question. What's the purpose? And the vision is, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What's the vision? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? A vision of the company. And I don't believe, in my opinion, by the way, there's not a good-looking gentleman also called Carl. I don't believe, Carl, to have a vision statement that's 10 years. The world changes so fast. The coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus, has new variants every 6 months anyway. The world changes so fast. So typically I would look at 3 years. And most sophisticated investors, if you're looking to raise capital, they know if it's a 5-year plan that you don't know what you're doing, in my opinion. I've talked to about 150 investors over the last 4 or 5 years and people to raise money. I just did about 40 from January to today. And tonight I'm talking to another 15 right after this workshop. So I get a sense of what they're looking for, what people do, what kind of thing. So mission, vision, and then what is the strategy? And this is what we call a crapshoot. Strategy is what's the direction and how we're going to get there. What are the key pillars of your strategy? What are your core competencies, right? Within the strategy, there are some core competencies. If you don't have this, you need to bring in partners or cheap employees or brothers and sisters, because then you could actually, and that's how I got started with my first company. I got 2 younger brothers and they say, hey, I want to make a company. You're in. I'll give you some shares. How much is salary? Well, it doesn't pay, right? So you have to have core competencies. You probably need to look at, what's your financial plan. The financial plan is the P&L, the pro forma, the forecast, right? But if it's a tech company, and we're specifically talking about a valuation type company, tech company, you need to have a capitalization plan. What do I mean by that? How much money are we going to raise? With the money that you're going to give me, what are we going to do with it? And what can I deliver for that amount? So how much money? What do I do with it? And what is the deliverables? Is that fair? And then, what do you get in return? Right? What do you get as a investor? Come on in. Hi, welcome. Champagne has been served. And you are?
Julie from Carl.
Junie. I'm Carl.
Hello, Dr. Carl.
Oh, just call me Carl, yeah. I did spend 7 years in a postgraduate degree, but nobody calls me Carl, not even nobody calls me doctor. Yeah. So, where am I? It starts with a mission and a vision. Why do we exist? Vision, the strategy, core competencies, financial plan, and capitalization plan. Now, I talked about 2 different types of companies. The valuation type, where you're trying to build something that you can go IPO, and the traditional P&L. I would say the traditional P&L company deserves that same type of thinking and plan. But perhaps we don't really have to worry about the capitalization plan. So that's kind of like layer 1 of a strategic plan. Layer 1, in my opinion. I've done a lot of it. We're also a management consulting firm, so we try to be very disciplined about this. And now when I go into any joint ventures, I've got people approaching me to start companies all the time. My wife has said enough, which I agree. But I usually say, okay, what's your game plan? And if they don't have one, but just have an idea, then where I contribute is I contribute this discipline and say, let's work through it. Let's revel through it. You can call me a coach. You can call me an enthusiastic participant or shareholder. Once you've got this first layer up, then the question comes down to implementation. A plan is not a plan if it's a list, in my opinion, and I don't want to be so dogmatic about it, but I don't see any other way. I'll try to use a different color to give flavor. A plan has to always have 5 things. Otherwise, it's just ideas. And I always say, everybody has great ideas. The security guard downstairs got ideas. Everybody's got ideas. A difference between an idea and a plan is 5 things. And I believe in writing a plan down. By the way, you can Google this if you don't believe me. My daughter said, Papa, I'll just Google it. You can Google this. There is a very famous study, very famous. Sue is one of the most well-documented, that they call longitudinals over the years, by Harvard Business Review, Harvard Business School. It's called the Evergreen Study. It's called the Evergreen Study. You can Google it. The paper's out. It asks this question: of all the things that you do in a company, Rob, from quality control to training to recruitment to compensation design to product development to innovation, they look at 200 management practices within every company over all industry, from airline to hospitality to car dealerships to consulting firms. They look at 200 practices of management. What is the one practice that changes the game? It's as simple as you must have a plan. It has to be written down and you must communicate it. If you do these 3 things, the likelihood of you overperforming versus people who don't, Lindsay, is like 400% difference. It was done over 18 years. They looked at every practice of management and said, what is the one thing that changes the game for all companies, individuals, line managers, CEOs? It's just simply have a plan that's written down. Have a plan, write it down, and share it. And here's what they found. You'll like this one. Most plans were wrong. It didn't matter that, Ronnie, that your plan was good or bad. It just mattered that you wrote it down. You had one, you wrote it down, and then you shared it with someone within the company. So, yeah, most businesses fail to do that. I've got a CEO right now that I struggle with also. He's a great guy because we're so dynamic. Still, let's write it down. So, and the rationale is so that you know what you've changed. Otherwise, you don't know what you've changed. So, plan has 5 things, in my opinion. It always has a timeline. January, February, March, April, May, first week, second week, every day. It always has time. If there's an idea that's got a time, it's beginning to look like a plan. That's my first basic principle. I've got a couple hundred people working with me, reporting to me, and I always say, what's the plan? Because I don't want to manage you based on your attitude. I love it. Right? I want to manage you not on your results, because the results is a lagging indicator. By definition, results is an outcome, not the input. I want to manage by activities and a plan. Because if I manage somebody by the results, if the results suck, you're either out or we're going to look at what we call consequence management. So I rather have a plan. So the first thing I always share with my colleagues and my team members is have a plan, time, then activities. What are the key activities? 5 key activities. Break it down a little bit. It's simple. What are you going to be doing? An activity always starts with a do, call, email, set up, meet, make, design. An activity is always an action word. Also, a plan always have outcomes, deliverables. Mini deliverables, Lindsay, or big deliverables. What are the 2 outcomes? What is the 1 outcome? Outcomes. Always have to have that. This is the input, this is the output. Then, in my opinion, if you're going to be in a tech business, you want to say, okay, what are the financial needs to deliver this? What are the financial resources? to drive these activities. And last, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lastly, what are the skill sets or the core competencies that's needed? What are the skill sets? And generally, there's 3, 4 skill sets. And I want to just give you a quick summary because, yeah, skills. But I'm going to call it MTSK. What's the mindset that's necessary to do these activities? You can have the skill set, but if you're a closed mindset, then you're the wrong person for the job. What's the mindset? What's the technical skills? A technical skills could be like coding, making a website, doing an Instagram post. A technical skill could be like writing a business plan. It's a technical skill, right? A technical skill is strategic thinking, project management, working on an Excel sheet, using PowerPoint. Those are technical skills. Mindset, technical skills, soft skills, the ability to communicate, and knowledge. Do you need to know more about a product knowledge, competitors knowledge, the market knowledge, what is opportunity? So these are what I call MTSK. So the first layer is the big picture. That's what we've done, at least the business I've been in. And by all means, I don't consider myself a successful businessman. I can put bread on the table. I can come here and have a glass of wine. You know, I'm work in progress. You know, and my priority in life is trying to figure out how to talk to my teenage kids right now. So I don't, but I have done a lot of stuff, and Ronnie knows I've done a little too many of my fair share. I take, by the way, the same concepts at church with my pastors and my bishop. Bishop, what's the plan? We'll pray. Praying is an activity. What are you hoping to achieve? When are you going to pray? And what are you praying for? And yeah. It's good to have God as a part of your game plan. There's no doubt about it, right? He walks on water. That's fantastic. But you still need some, you still need some, So where do I contribute, right? So, I try my best is not a plan. I'll work harder is not a plan. That's an attitude. And if you don't have that attitude coming in, it's already a bit late. So when people say, boss, I'll try my best. So last week you didn't? Yeah. I'll work harder. So last 2 weeks you didn't work that hard? What's going on here? So I'd rather have a plan. So high level, why we exist, what we want to be when we grow up. Core competencies, the P&L, the forecast, the pro forma, as well as perhaps the capitalization plan if it's a tech firm, because most likely you'll be burning money before you get to a point where you can have a break even and or profit. And then you have a game plan. And it's these two combinations that allows you in a pitch deck to raise money. Now, the final piece is, if it's a pitch deck and it's a PowerPoint, typically this whole thing should be between 10 to 15 pages. Recently, a lady came to me and she wrote a thesis, an essay. Nobody's going to read that because our attention span has been conditioned by Google. If you click, you search, and you don't see what you're looking for in the first 10 slides within 4 seconds, you're off to something, right? Come on, let's just be honest. The whole TikTok concept comes from that, right? Instagram. So our attention span has been conditioned to say, tell me what you want to tell me now, right? It's not a conversation over a dinner, because when you pitch, you gotta be able to get that. Now, if they like you and they like the idea, they'll sit down and say, okay, Lindsay, let's grab dinner. Then they want to look at you. Because for early startups, Keith, it's not how good your plan is. Frankly speaking, nobody cares about it because it's a piece of paper and sometimes you don't even bother printing it out. They want to say, they're banking on you as an individual. That's my experience. When I raise money with family and friends, you want to see the plan? A couple of investors call, it's you. How much do you need? Well, I'm grateful because I'm old. I'm an uncle. I'm a dad. So I've got that years of experience with relationships that I have, that people will trust me now. And I'm very grateful for that. But fundamentally, when you got talking about a seed round, a pre Series A round, family and friends round, they're looking at you, and then they look at the idea. By the time they get to a Series A, if you understand what that means, raising substantial amount of money, giving about 20-30% away for your company, with institutional money, then the institutional money, the venture capital, needs to see some traction. So I'm mindfully aware that I want to solicit questions from you guys. So that's the backdrop for a technology company, a tech startup or tech company that's looking to have some ideas about a strategic plan. Hopefully that was a little bit clear. Thank you.